Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever thought, I know better, so why can't I feel better? You've read the books, you've done the mindset work, you are smart, you're self-aware, and you're deeply reflective. And still, your body, it feels like it's buzzing, frozen, or about to crash. Here's the truth no one tells high-functioning women like us. You can't think your way to safety. Emotional sovereignty, true freedom and groundedness, it begins in your body. It's not in your thoughts. It's not even in your journal, even though I love journaling, and it's not in your best intentions. In this episode, I want to gently reframe what might really be going on beneath your overwhelm. We'll explore how nervous system dysregulation shows up in high capacity women and why reclaiming rest, rhythm, and regulation is the key to your peace. Not more pushing, not more fixing. This is for the woman who's done all the right things and is still asking, why don't I feel safe yet? Welcome to the Power to Flourish podcast, where science meets the art of a beautiful life. I'm Dr. Andrea Line, positive psychologist, giftedness expert and coach, and modern-day spiritual godmother to brilliant, deep-feeling women. This isn't just another self-help podcast. It's a sanctuary, a sacred space to come back to yourself. Each week, we'll explore the emotional experience of gifted, sensitive women and what it means to live a life that feels as beautiful as it may look. Because flourishing isn't a luxury, it's your birthright, and your life is waiting. This is the Power to Flourish podcast. So first, let's start off. When I say nervous system dysregulation, I'm not talking about a diagnosis or a disorder. I'm talking about something that is deeply human and honestly really common, especially for women like us. It just simply means that your body is stuck in a pattern of protection instead of presence. So your nervous system is designed to keep you safe. We are so beautifully wired for safety. But when it gets overwhelmed, and that can happen through chronic stress, through trauma, your emotional intensity, just how you are in the world, or simply by the pressure of doing too much for too long. Can anyone relate? I'm raising my hand. It can shift into one of four survival responses. So you may have already heard of these, but I'm going to run through them really quickly just for a review, or maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it. But there's four different survival responses that researchers have described. The first one is fight. The second is flight. Third is freeze. And the fourth is fawn. So fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So what might this look like in real life? So fight. Think about when you are feeling irritable. It looks like maybe over controlling. It looks like perfectionism or snapping at loved ones. We all probably can relate to this, right? We're just like, our nervous systems are wrecked. We are probably overtired. We're probably doing too much for too long. And we just get irritable. We get snappy. Obviously, taken to an extreme, it really can look like fighting, but these are a little more subdued descriptions of what it could look like in you as a gifted woman who is juggling a lot, right? Flight can show up as, tell me if this sounds familiar, overworking, obsessive thinking, or never feeling settled. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like, even when you're trying to feel settled or when you're trying to rest, it's like you feel like you've got to like get up and go. Your mind is going, going, going. You can't stop working. You just don't feel settled. That's like flight mode. It's your body's way of like, it's like saying, I gotta do something. I gotta get out of here. Okay, freeze. This could look like you just feel numb. Maybe you feel checked out. Maybe you find yourself like constantly scrolling, but you're not really present. you can't really stop. It could also just look like fatigue, like just constant fatigue that doesn't really have a good reason that you can come up with. It's not like an understandable fatigue. And then fawn is when you overplease, you say yes, even when you really mean to say no, or you feel like your worth depends on keeping the peace, or you don't have the energy to deal with what might happen if you don't keep the peace. So you choose keeping the peace over what you really need, right? So basically, this is like all of our boundaries, they collapse. It's just like no boundaries. We're saying yes to everything. And that is like the fawning, what we call the fawning response. So again, I'm going to say that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, those are the 4 survival mechanisms. So just keep in mind, these responses, they're not failures, right? They are actually brilliant adaptations that our body has created for us to try to handle what's been coming out at us in our environment, in our life, right? Maybe years, and maybe for some of you, decades, if you're like me, decades of just a combination of maybe childhood trauma and then going, and overworking. And then you have a family of your own and you feel like you can't stop. And it just compiles and compiles until one day you wake up and you're like, what is happening? How do I stop this? Right. And that's probably why you're listening to me talking right now. The truth is, many of us have just normalized these patterns. So they are stress responses. And we've just adapted to stress because we live in a culture, we live in a world today where it's just normal, right? It's normalized, but it's not really normal. It's not how we're created to live. So we have adapted so well that we don't often realize we're dysregulated. This becomes our normal. And I can very much relate to this. It's like you don't know any different. You don't know that you don't have to feel this way. Our bodies have just adapted so well. And we probably live and, interact with people who are operating in that same dysregulated place. So not only does it feel normal to us because we've always lived this way, we live in a culture where a lot of people are living this way. So it feels just normal, even when it's very, very not normal. So here's where it gets especially important for gifted women. And when I say gifted women, I'm not just talking about your intelligence, although you are highly intelligent and, very smart and creative and brilliant in your space. But there's this layer that often comes with this intensity, right? It's not just your cognitive brilliance. What I mean by that, like your intelligence, right? How you think and the intensity of your thinking, but it's also the intensity of your feeling. You feel deeply oftentimes. You're constantly aware of what's going around you. This is part of the wiring of gifted women. So this intensity, it means lucky you, lucky us, that you've likely been living with more nervous system stimulation than most people your whole life. I want to say that again because I think it is incredibly important to understand, also just so you can validate your own experience for yourself, that I think oftentimes we do feel like there's something wrong, quote unquote, wrong with us, or there's something different about us. And there is something different about us because you take in everything. You're just so much more aware of a lot of what's going on in the environment, what's going on in your immediate environment, but also in the world. And you're thinking about your family and you're thinking about, maybe the school or the other the groups, in your life. You're just more aware. So your nervous system is stimulated. It's not that other people aren't also getting their nervous system stimulated, but you just live with this heightened sensitivity to a lot of things, right? Emotions, expectations, injustice. Sometimes we don't even think about that, right? But like, how many of you can relate to that? Like, you see things happening in the world and you're like, it's upsetting to you. I mean, it's upsetting to everyone, but let me tell you, gifted women, they're very, very keen on like the injustice of the world, right? And that is zapping you. The energy in a room, even just your own thoughts, right? So you just have this heightened sensitivity to everything. You might not recognize that it's that way because you've just lived your whole life that way, but that is the profile of giftedness. So again, just in the context of thinking about your nervous system, you are constantly processing, analyzing, noticing. And if you've never been taught how to regulate that input, it can lead to chronic overwhelm. Now, I'm just going to pause here for a second because how many of us, it is a rare, rare situation. I mean, it does happen, and hopefully today more so because we have so much education out there for parents. But for someone in my generation, I'm almost 50 years old. We did not have the kind of information for parents on, say, emotional regulation and all these things. And certainly certain parents intuitively knew how to help their child and teach their child, back in the 80s. But for the most part, let's just say most of us, even if you are younger than I am, probably haven't really been taught how to regulate all that input. Added onto that layer, most parents of gifted children, again, I'm going to talk in the history of this because there are a lot of parents of gifted children these days and they have access to a lot of information, which is awesome. But for so many of us growing up, maybe our parents, they didn't have the label gifted. They didn't realize that we experience the world this way, right? So there are lots of situations, I think, where we have grown up. Maybe you grew up in a family where for whatever reason, even if you had wonderful, amazing parents, they probably didn't really know how you are wired this way and therefore didn't teach you explicitly how to regulate all of the stimulation and how it's affecting you. So I just want to, again, like a lot of compassion for yourself, a lot of compassion for your parents who didn't know any better. We're constantly learning and evolving from generation to generation. So it's a beautiful thing today. If you're a parent, you have access to so much more information than we did even just a couple decades ago. So coming back to what I often see in gifted women, it's often this split. On the outside, you're high functioning, put together. Maybe you describe yourself as driven, right? You look on the outside like things are going fairly well because you have that capacity and you're high functioning. But on the inside, you're living in a near constant state of high alert or total collapse. It's almost like, I don't know if you can relate to this. I remember times where I felt like I had to be on like high alert, go, go, go mode, because if I didn't stay in that place, it would be like total collapse. I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but this is a sign that our nervous system is not fully healed and regulating like it needs to be. So this is why I'm so passionate about teaching this, because we cannot separate giftedness from regulation. It's important to understand nervous system regulation for sure. And anyone can learn and benefit from it, right? But if you don't understand the wiring of a gifted person, you're missing a piece of the puzzle, let's say. So it's not just about managing your stress. It is about honoring the complexity of a gifted, beautiful, gifted nervous system that was never meant to live in chronic overdrive. So what do high capacity, I'm going to say high capacity women, maybe you resonate with the term gifted or not. I use them interchangeably because honestly, I don't love the label gifted, but I'm going to use it because that is the term that we have in psychology come up with to describe this concept. So what happens? Why is it that so many of us miss all of this? Well, we're praised for pushing through, right? We live in a culture that rewards achievement. It rewards the very thing that we're so very good at. We're praised for being resilient. How many of you can relate to that? We're praised for powering on. Please, I'm like raising both of my hands right now. I can relate to this so much, and I think many of you can as well. You may look successful in whatever area of life. Maybe you're a creative and you're artist. Maybe you're a professional woman, in the workforce, building your career. Maybe you're an executive. Maybe you're an entrepreneur. Wherever your talents lie, you may look very successful, and not just look, you're successful, but internally you're feeling maybe a little fragile. Maybe you feel just chronically overwhelmed. Maybe you feel actually more like resentful and angry. Sometimes people lean into more of the fragility piece. Sometimes people just are kind of more in that, again, the fight mode, like feeling upset, angry at everyone. Oftentimes they spiritualize, do you do this? Like spiritualize or intellectualize the stress. So we sort of like bypass our body and we're like up here in our head thinking about it, or maybe we're spiritualizing it. I can just say from in my own life, I've obviously spent many, many, many years learning a lot of things in the field of psychology, also learning to apply those things to myself. It's all mental, right? It was all, at a certain point, it was all mental, even talk therapy. Now, nowadays, obviously, we have a lot more access to somatic avenues and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But again, back when I was in my 20s, my teen years or 20s and even early 30s, it was a lot of mental knowledge. And mental knowledge is not going to help you in this area. It was when I learned how to begin dropping into my body. And that was the beginning. I was probably in my late 20s, really, when I started like putting this together for myself. And again, it was so long ago, where now we have, there's so much practice around this in different ways. But again, I'm almost 50. So let's say 25 years ago, we didn't have that same level of awareness. But for myself, I just in my own experience began noticing what felt good for me, how I moved my body, how I could get back into my body, because I was very, very, very disconnected from my body. People who knew me, people who dated me in my 20s, like gave me that feedback. I mean, it's a little humbling and it's embarrassing to say, but I think a lot of people can relate to it. I didn't know how to live any other way. So that was when things really started to change for me. And then I started building a practice for myself that worked for my body, for myself. I like to think of like titrating, because in the beginning, when you're that disconnected, it can be a lot to just jump fully into, I wouldn't recommend just try to jump all into it. So it's little titrations of dropping into your body. But now I've been on this journey for, gosh, a long, long, long time, decades of practicing. And so I can be fully in my body now. And that is how you heal this nervous system dysregulation and step into the emotional sovereignty, which I'm going to speak so much about more on this podcast. So I love, and I really want to encourage you to dive deeper into this for yourself, or just stay tuned to this podcast so you can learn more. But one thing that I just consider the most important piece of emotional well-being is this concept of emotional sovereignty. All this means, it's a big phrase, but really what I mean when I say emotional sovereignty, it means that you have the capacity to choose your response. Instead of reacting out of fear, instead of reacting out of habit or old patterns, you are being very reflective and proactive in your response. So this is not about being in control all the time. It's really just about being rooted and anchored. And even as I say rooted and anchored, I don't know for you when you hear that, I can, like, I have my hands on my belly right now. I can feel the rootedness in my gut. I can feel the anchored feeling in me right now as I say those words. It's a very visceral feeling. It's in my body. I can feel it. I also can feel when I'm not in that place. But I just wanted to pause right now as I'm literally speaking these words, what I feel in my body in real time as I'm speaking to you about this. And when people are rooted and anchored, you may not be aware of this, but when you're interacting with someone who is rooted and anchored, you feel it. I know this sounds a little woo-woo, like it's a vibration. I mean, it is a vibration. Because it's coming from a deep place within. So you can feel the difference when someone else is rooted. And I would encourage you also to note for yourself through this week, those moments where you notice you feel more rooted and maybe notice when you're not feeling so anchored. So again, this concept of sovereignty, it's the freedom to respond from what I like to call your true self or your highest self. This is your true self. This is your self underneath all the layers of like the habitual patterns and the trauma responses and all these other things, right? It's not from a dysregulated or depleted version of you. It's from your highest version of you, your most rooted version of you. And here's the thing. Most of us were never taught. You can't access that freedom, that choice, when your nervous system is in survival mode. So we can beat ourselves up because we see the freedom that we want, that we have, maybe that other people have, maybe we see on social media, people are talking about this or that, or they're living life a certain way and we see it and we want it. And then we beat up because it's like, well, why am I not able to choose that? Right? I want to be able to be empowered enough to choose that. And it's not just a mental thing. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not mental. So, I mean, our thoughts affect our emotions, of course. So it's not that our thoughts are not important, but when your nervous system is in survival mode, when your body feels unsafe, your brain starts to shut down anything that isn't essential to survival. This is a protection mechanism, right? Like it's for our survival. Literally, if you think of it from like an evolutionary perspective, if you need to survive, then gone are the free moments for you to just be creative and reflective and you know what I mean? And like tap into the greater wisdom. Like you're in survival mode. You're in survival mode. You need to make sure you're not going to die. So even though we live life and you're like, well, I'm not really in survival mode. You know, I have a house over my head and I've got plenty of food and, you know, whatever it might be. If you're in chronic stress, your body doesn't know any different. It may as well just be like, you don't have any food and you don't have shelter over your head. And for some of you out there listening, that might be some of what you're struggling with. And you are in survival mode, truly, you know? And that's a real thing. I mean, we can't like discount. I was a single mother. I won't go into all of that right now, but there was good reason for why I was in survival mode in my early and mid and late 20s, because I was in survival mode as a single mother trying to do it all and, you know, with very, very little finances to do it. So, if you've ever found yourself snapping when you don't want to, avoiding things you care about, shutting down emotionally, I just want to encourage you so you can shift the self-talk. It's not because you're weak. You're not broken. You're not weak for not being able to do those things or for doing the things that you don't want to do. It's your body trying to protect you. That's it. It's your body trying to protect you. So we thank our body. We thank our body for doing that for us. I have my hand over my heart right now. And we just have compassion and gratitude for your body for doing the beautiful thing it's meant to do. because you're not going to get out of this place if you're fighting with your body and you're angry and upset about it, right? So we need to, this is where self-compassion comes in. This is the pathway forward, just allowing that love and compassion to just flow over you. Even in this moment, as you're hearing my voice, I just pray that you would feel the comfort and compassion surrounding you if this is something you've struggled with. You don't need more self-discipline. You need more safety. You don't need more self-discipline. You need more safety. And this is why emotional sovereignty always starts in the body. So I'm going to wrap up by inviting you into some practices that maybe some of these you've already incorporated, but I'm going to review some that I use myself. I have taught them, and they're things that actually work. So how do we begin to restore that safety? If you're like, well, okay, I want to feel that safety. Help me get there. Okay, right? We're not going to do it through hustle. We're not going to like tell ourselves we have to journal harder or journal more. I mean, I'm all about journaling, but like give yourself a break if you're having a hard time even doing that, right? We're not grinding our way through a morning routine to be more optimized and all the things. Like that's not the grinding the way. It's not going to get you there to more safety. We're going to start with gentleness. We're going to start with self-compassion. So here's a few things I want you to try. And maybe just choose one of these so you don't overwhelm yourself. Maybe they're things you already do, but maybe just focus on whatever is highlighted right now as I share them. And like, just make a mental note, like you're going to try one of these in the next 24 hours, right? First, a simple breath prayer. A simple breath prayer. This is connecting your breath in your body in a spiritual way. And you may not necessarily, you may not feel like you're a really spiritual person. And so you can even just focus on your breath with this. But I think many of my listeners and followers do consider themselves to be pretty spiritual. And I'm a very spiritual person. So I'm going to share this with you. It's so simple, but I just want you to take moments where you're inhaling peace and exhaling control. So anytime you need this prayer, where you're feeling anxious, you're feeling dysregulated, you're feeling irritated, you're feeling upset, things aren't going your way, it's just not going the way you wanted it. We're going to inhale peace and we're going to exhale that control or exhale that anxiety or exhale that frustration. And you just do that. You can do that for a minute. Truly, you don't have to do this for 10 minutes. Great if you want to, but you could try it right now. Just do it for 30 seconds and you'll feel your nervous system gets readjusted. These are these little nervous system. It's like a recalibration. Okay. So that's very simple. It's very gentle. The other thing that I love doing, and if anyone knows me personally, they know this is so true of me. I was doing it way before I realized what it did for me. Meaning I just intuitively kept doing it because clearly it was working for me, but I didn't understand the science, nor did anyone understand the science back when I was doing it. And, my young years, but just humming or singing. I remember my daughter when she was probably like, I don't know, she was a child. And when she saw me stressed out, which of course I'm embarrassed to say, but it happened. I was stressed out a lot. And I remember her very distinctly saying, piping up from the back seat, she was like, "Mommy, you should sing a song." And it makes me just like want to cry, like even thinking about it. But she knew because she had seen me so many times, especially in the car. It was like my place, right? Where you're like driving all around and your life is full. And I would just turn on the music and I would just start singing. This is what I've done my whole life. I started as a young child playing piano and singing in a very chaotic household. And so singing and humming, even if you're like, oh, I'm not really a singer, it's okay. You don't need to be a singer, but humming is great. Just what this is doing is it's gently helping to tone the vagus nerve, which I'm not going to go into the whole science of that right now, but the vagus nerve is a huge part. It connects it's like reaching from your belly up to your brain, well, the belly, your second brain. And it's that connection between those. And so we want to tone that, and humming and singing really helps us to do that. So this, also find a great song that just makes you feel better, and emotionally it'll start helping you in many ways. But the singing and the humming, I'm a big proponent of it. Okay. 2 more really quick things. Time in nature. Even if it's just a few minutes, get out if you can, get real sunlight on your face. If you can, like, feel the grass beneath your feet, if you're able to access that. It doesn't, again, have to be hours, like just a few minutes helps to regulate the nervous system. And then finally, slowing down your movements to remind your body you're not in danger anymore. How many people can relate, right? We're like literally racing around. I find this with myself even today. I get into a mode, I'm racing around, I'm not noticing it, but then my breath gets shallow. Like when you notice that, just make a conscious effort to go slow, which feels really counterintuitive in those moments because you're like, I'm stressed. I can't go slow. But we're talking about ways to restore that safety. So that's one way you can do it, just by slowing down your movements, taking in those deeper breaths, relaxing your shoulders. If you have a workout routine or some other kind of movement practice where you can build that in, great. It doesn't have to be an hour a day. Like take 15 minutes, at the end of your day or in the middle of your day, and that will help too. So I'm just going to review really quick. The breath prayer, or you can just focus on your breath. A few minutes humming or singing, time in nature, and slowing down your movements. They might sound so simple and so small. You're like, is this really going to help? But I promise you, it's over time doing this, building them into the way you live. They are powerful acts of reclamation because, please hear me, you don't need to fix yourself. You just need to regulate. You need to teach your body to regulate the things that you didn't learn when you were younger. You need to be held by these rhythms that restore you. And you need to be able to create enough inner calm that your soul can speak again. Rest is something you do not have to earn, even though we've probably internalized that as high capacity women, right? We've been taught that our productivity equals our worthiness, that slowing down is just laziness. And so it can be really hard to do some of these things. It can be really hard to slow down, but just hear this truth. Rest is not a reward, it's repair. So just like in some other situation where it would be very obvious that you need to repair something, a lot of this that we're struggling with, it doesn't feel obvious. It's not visible in many ways, right? This internal experience. So just think, this rest is your repair. This rest is your repair. So here's your invitation. Let rest become a form of self-leadership, that emotional sovereignty I was talking about earlier. Let your body teach you how to return to your own rhythm. Just listen to it. Listen to what it needs. Because reclaiming rest isn't weakness, it's your wisdom. And the more safety you create in your body, the more emotional sovereignty you reclaim. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you haven't taken the Gifted Woman quiz and you're curious, if some of this is like, it resonates with you, you're like, I do feel this. I encourage you to take the quiz. If you haven't, you can go to my website to take that quiz, or I'll include the link below in the show notes. But that will help you understand a broader spectrum of some of the things that gifted, intense women experience, and might help you to understand a little bit more your own experience. And if you haven't subscribed yet to my sanctuary letters, I invite you to do the same because I send weekly little love letters to you. They're my little peaceful reflections, things that I've been going through in my own life, reflections that I share with those in my inner circle. And you can also subscribe in the show notes, or you can find them on Substack under my name, Dr. Andrea Line. Thank you for joining me again. And as always, keep flourishing. Thank you for listening to the Power to Flourish podcast. I hope today's conversation left you feeling more seen, more supported, and more deeply connected to yourself. And if this episode resonated, would you take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend? It's one of the best ways to help this work reach the women who need it most. You'll find show notes, links, and resources from today's episode at powertoflourish.com. And now just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It's not therapy, medical advice, or a substitute for professional support. And listening doesn't make me your therapist or doctor, though if you're looking for a coach, you know where to find me. All right, beautiful one, that's it for now. Until next time, trust yourself, honor your gifts, and keep flourishing.